Windy. Hello, sorry for keeping you here. I had to do a bilateral with my Moldovan colleague who was also invited to take part in this G7 meeting. So it was a meeting between friends, partners and allies. And I would like to thank German chairmanship of G7 for this invitation. This is the second time that I take part in the G7 foreign ministers gathering. We have a feeling that this practice will become regular because there is so much in common between us, Ukraine and G7 countries. G7 is a group that proves one important thing. Irrespective of geography, what really matters are the principles and values that you stand for. And all of us, we share the same principles and values and we defend them. And I'm happy to see that G7 is strong again, and it is Ukraine who made G7 strong again. It is our struggle that brought back confidence in the G7 to lead, to shape international affairs and to counter attempts of authoritarian regimes to defeat democracy. If you look back 2.5 months ago, there were conversations about decline of democracies, about the offensive of authoritarianism. This is all in the past now. I regret the price that Ukraine is paying for this, but this is all in the past. G7 is strong, it makes decisions, it implements decisions, and these decisions make a difference. And today I asked G7 countries to adopt legislation and put in place all necessary procedures needed to seize Russian sovereign assets and give them to Ukraine. Give them to Ukraine for Ukraine to use this money to rebuild our country, to reconstruct our country after all the damage inflicted on us. Canada has already done so, and I have a feeling that others will reach that point rather sooner than later. We're talking about hundreds of billions of US dollars and euros, and the assumption is very simple. Russia must pay, politically, economically, but also financially. So I appreciate a positive reaction of G7 countries to my request. Second, we discussed extensively the global food crisis. Russian aggression against Ukraine is the only reason for the unfolding global food crisis. Russia blocked Ukrainian ports. Russia targets with missiles the city of Odessa, the largest Ukrainian port, which was used to export Ukrainian agriculture to global markets. Sunflower oil, grain, corn, other products. They are all blocked in Ukraine. Not because of sanctions, not because of our unwillingness to export, but because of the Russian aggression and the Russian blockade of our ports. And together with G7 today we discussed ways how to lift this blockade, how to make sure that Ukrainian agricultural products will make it to the global markets, especially to Africa and to Asian countries. We do care for food security of African countries, of Asian countries, and everyone who depends on supplies from Ukraine. We, Ukraine, together with G7, are looking for the ways how to resolve this problem so that prices will not be increasing and there will be no food shortage in Africa and other parts of the world because of the Russian aggression against us. Weapons. The last time I met with G7, it was combined with the NATO ministerial in Brussels, And I arrived in Brussels with a clear message that I came for three things: weapons, weapons, and weapons. The situation has improved since then, and we see more and more weapons that Ukraine needs coming into the country. But there will be enough of weapons when we win the war. As long as the war goes on, supplies should continue. And today with G7 countries we address the issue of sustainability of supplies. How to make sure that Ukraine receives everything that it needs to contain Russia and to defeat Russia militarily in Ukraine. Because the situation when we fight a battle and the weapons that are needed are still on the way is not helpful. So sustainability is an issue and we will address it together with partners. And finally, on sanctions. We are all looking forward to the outcome of EU drama related to the adoption of the 6th EU package. If this package is adopted without oil embargo, I believe President Putin can celebrate, because it will be the first case when the unity of the European Union will be broken because of the position of one country, Hungary. And therefore, we believe and we hope that the European Union will be successful in reaching consensus. It is their affair how to strike a balance, how to make a deal with Hungary. We do not interfere in that discussion, but it's a critical moment when we will see whether EU unity will continue to exist or it will be broken. And I would like to remind you, all of you, that President Putin has been trying for many years to achieve exactly this goal, to break the unity of the European Union on its policy towards Ukraine. So hopefully everything will be fine. I will be in Brussels on Monday. I am invited to take part in this Foreign Affairs Council meeting. But so far, this seems to be it about the discussion with G7. It was helpful, fruitful, very honest, and result-oriented. Thank you.
Foreign Minister, can we ask you about
This, and then you.
Can we ask you directly about Prime Minister Orban's position? What is your view of the way that Hungary is negotiating right now and the position of Prime Minister Orban after his re-election? And if I may add, here at the G7, do you think it's likely that President Zelensky might in person attend the big G7 leaders summit at the end of the month?
President Zelensky has not left Kiev since the beginning of the war. And I don't think he has any plans to do so. But his personality and his capacity to reach out to people is so strong that even when he addresses summits through VTC, it's like if he was there in person. But on Hungary, we do not find the Hungarian arguments convincing. We see there is more politics than economic arguments behind Hungary's position, but again, it's up for the European Union to strike a deal or not to strike it. We will see. I believe that if theoretically Hungary opts out and does not support the package, I believe it will cause a lot of damage on the European Union itself, and therefore they have to do their utmost to prevent it from happening.
Mr. Kuleba, Steve Sidgwick from CNBC. You talked about the support of G7 and its allies for Ukraine. Where are the biggest gaps still between what Ukraine has asked for and what the West is supplying? And if I may, a second question, do you see any prospect at the moment of meaningful diplomatic talks to end this war with Russia, given the most recent protestations from the Kremlin on Vladimir Putin?
The situation with weapons, the weapons supplies have improved significantly. The American howitzers and howitzers coming from some European countries are very helpful. Two big issues which still need to be addressed from the military perspective is the supply of multiple launch rocket systems. This is a big deal. and we are talking with various partners, including G7, on how to get them. We were told we would get them, but as long as we don't have them, this is the gap that needs to be filled. And the second issue, the second gap remains open. It's the Air Force. It has become, a very noisy story in the last 2.5 months. It still remains unresolved. We will keep addressing it. But I do not have, unlike with MLRS, I do not see the immediate solution for this gap. On sanctions, oil and gas. As long as Russia continues to sell gas and oil to the European Union, their pockets will be full enough to continue fighting the war. The ridiculousness of the situation now is that Ukrainian economy suffers much more from the Russian aggression and destruction than Russian economy suffers from the sanctions imposed on it. I'm not trying to say that sanctions are not working. Sanctions which were already imposed, they make a lot of sense in mid-term perspective. Sanctions imposed against Russian defense industry help us because Russia cannot produce state-of-the-art weapons to throw them into the battle. But Russia is making a lot of money on selling oil and gas to Europe. This must stop. The solution for oil is near, it's there, and I see that European countries are working hard on finding a solution for gas. And I'm very cautiously optimistic after my visit to Berlin yesterday, because I saw the commitment to find a solution to break the dependence of Germany on Russian gas. And if that happens, everything else will be easier. It takes some time, but it's important to move in that direction. These are the two big gaps on military front and two gaps on economic front that have to be filled. But the most important thing is that we see eagerness and willingness to move, to take this path. And it gives us hopes.
What kind of solutions are on the table to de-block food supplies?
Well, they are all logistical. And I will not go into details now because I cannot compromise either of the options. But we are working with the United Nations, we are working with the European Union, we are working with G7, how to build logistics in a way that sufficient amount of Ukrainian crops can make it to the global market within the shortest period of time. Because the problem is that if we do not sell what we now have in our stocks, new harvest is coming and we will have no place to store it. And if that happens, then the entire agricultural cycle in Ukraine will be interrupted. And that means that the crisis will become systemic. And this is something that we cannot avoid. And I would like to take this opportunity to call on all African and Asian countries who feel vulnerability towards this food crisis to appeal to Russia to stop its aggression and to address the issue of Ukrainian agricultural exports in a constructive way. Because in the end, whatever scenario we build, it depends on the Russian behavior one way or another.
Have you received any assurances from your French counterpart on your bid and desire to join the European Union that Emmanuel Macron's recently described plan is not an attempt to fob off Ukraine into some sort of second?
After speaking, let me put it this way, I'm anticipating a month and a half of exciting conversations with some European capitals on the EU candidacy status for Ukraine. I had a very friendly and constructive conversation with Jean-Yves Le Drian today on this matter, and he assured me that the idea expressed by President Macron to launch the European Political Union is not designed at bypassing Ukraine or at finding an alternative solution for Ukraine's European aspirations. And this assurance was very important, because now we have a clearer picture of how to address the issue. And frankly, we do not see any contradiction between granting Ukraine the EU candidacy status at the summit in late June and launching the reform process of the European Union, be it European Political Union or any other reform initiative. These are the processes that can complement each other and meet each other at a certain point. So I know what arguments of skeptics are, and my conclusion is that these are not entirely rational arguments. These are arguments rather based on the fear to make historic decisions. And I think that Europe is in the process of change, where those who will dare to make historic decisions will get the biggest political profit from it and will write their names down in history.
Is there any negotiation with Russia about this?
We were talking with them on Odessa. We did not receive any positive feedback, but we are ready to engage with them on negotiations. In negotiations with them on the food security issue. The problem is that we do not see any appetite from their side to address this matter. And equally, someone asked me about political negotiations. It's the same there. Russia prefers war to talks. This is the fact. This is what we see on the battleground. We are ready to talk, but we are ready for a meaningful conversation based on mutual respect, not on Russian ultimatums thrown on the table with like take it or leave it approach. Guys, I do not want you to get wet, so thank you very much. Bye-bye.